My name is Jacob, by the way.
Hey, I am, let's go with Thetch.
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 With a TH.
Yes.
Thetch. Nice to meet you. You're
Nice
welcome
to
to
meet
wear
you.
this if you'd like.
Sure.
Sort of helps you hear better and zone in.
Ah, very cool.
Yeah. Which trail did you guys do?
I don't know, just the paved trail.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've done that one before.
Yeah, go up and around to the top and then come all the way back down.
Okay.
So nothing too crazy.
Yeah. For me, this trail is very sunny, which,
Yes.
you know, I could take it or leave it.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a little challenging in the heat.
Yeah. Good for a sweat. So, what are you thinking about?
So, I guess posing a system of belief. I believe that the DARE program was one of the worst educational moments in public school.
Okay. DARE. Do you remember what DARE stands for?
Drug Abuse Resistance Education.
I never even knew that. And they did DARE at my school like 100%. So help me put this into like a sentence. You know, DARE is...
DARE is a simple sentence.
Please. It's a small post-it note.
DARE doesn't work.
Okay. This is our jumping off point. You can see next to your post-it, you've got a little meter that goes from nothing to all, and a needle you can slide from one way to the other. How sure are you that DARE doesn't work?
Let's go. This is full, right?
Yes. It's like a 75 about.
Now let's go a little higher than
Okay. So we're looking at like 80, 90.
that. Somewhere in there, yeah.
Okay. So why don't you help me define what it means that it doesn't work?
Simply, or are we in conversation here?
We're in conversation, so
Okay.
go full elaboration.
I think DARE does a great job of scaring people out of experiences. I think there is a lot of quality education that exists in the world to talk about harmful substances. However, I think that a lot of the way that DARE approaches drug education scares people into believing that these things are harmful and negative and poor, which is not, in my opinion, incorrect. But I think that there can definitely be a much more integrative approach to understanding the world around us. Instead of demonizing things, allowing a further understanding of things so that we can be more mindful in the way that we're kind of having these conversations and approaching our lives, because these things are going to be around. It's just a matter of how you interact with them is really important. And not to mention that once, you know, a lot of things are referred to as gateway substances and whatnot, but you know, as human beings, we're very curious creatures, and if that gateway is crossed at that point and we find that there is a lack of integrity in that messaging, then that kind of brings up a lot of other questions as to, you know, what else is harmful or not, or what have they been lying to us about, and how do we explore that a little bit further. So instead of having like a responsible take on substance use, we have demonized it and created fear around it.
Right.
So
Let me see if I'm like on the same page as you. So DARE is, the MO is sort of like scaring kids into just staying away from drugs altogether, demonizing, as you put it. And because drugs exist in the world and are kind of like an inevitable part of adult life at some point for your friends or a friend of your friend, people will be exposed to drugs, and once they realize that, say, marijuana, for example, isn't as deadly as heroin, although DARE would have led you to believe it was,
sure.
this young adult would think, oh my God, DARE was wrong about weed. What else were they wrong about? Let's do the next thing.
Sure. And not to mention, you know, now the fact that in California we're looking at almost a complete legalization of marijuana. And, that's mixed messaging. We grew up saying that this is bad, this is wrong, and now we're experiencing something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And so looking at kind of more of a bureaucratic approach to the way that we look at the world around us, we're now seeing kind of the opposite of that. There's more of an acceptance, a movement in that direction to say, hey, these things are not as bad as you have made it out to be.
Yeah.
And this can actually help to benefit society in some way or another.
Yeah. So I noticed that we're kind of on this, we're kind of talking about these in sort of philosophical terms of like, it's wrong to demonize something, we should take a more realistic approach, prepare kids for the real world. What if I took the conversation in the direction of like looking at statistics about drug use?
Sure.
For, let's say that we have like a school district, this is hypothetical, I don't have any stats on me right now. One school district uses DARE, the other doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of results would you expect after doing a little like study of these schools that would affirm for you that DARE doesn't work?
Well, I think you bring up an interesting point though too, is that the lack of education period is going to kind of create a completely different environment, and exposure to something and without any kind of understanding of what it is you're dealing with, I think is not going to be the best way to do it. I'm simply suggesting that there is another alternative than a fear-based education.
Okay.
So would you mind repeating your question?
Yeah. And that's okay to like go back and add a little caveat too. We take the direction wherever you want to go.
Okay.
So let's say that we had a school district using DARE, another that wasn't.
Uh-huh.
My question is, if you were correct that DARE doesn't work, and we looked at the kids who graduated from these high schools that used DARE and high schools that didn't, what kind of outcomes would you expect for the kids that use DARE that would affirm that DARE doesn't work?
That's a tough hypothetical.
That might have been too convoluted, wasn't it?
No, the question was not convoluted. But I mean, I can only base it off of my own experiences
Sure.
as well, right? So, if you're, let's say hypothetically you do grow up in a school that has a DARE program, and the community around you is fairly kind of conservative in that viewpoint,
Okay.
then chances of exploration in that kind of direction are fairly mild,
Mhm.
I would guess. And then let's say you went to college or university in a town that wasn't as
Mhm.
conservative, was a little bit more liberally mindseted, not politically, but liberally mindset in the in that world of substance use and whatnot. Then I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think that it would there's a potential for any infinite number of possibilities.
Mhm.
I mean, personally, in my own experience of things, I have definitely grappled with the moralistic side of like exploration, but
Mhm.
also understanding that like, okay, if I want to do this, I'm going to do it,
Mhm.
and then coming out the other side and being like, okay, now let's reevaluate that and see kind of like what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's hard to make a blanket statement about that because every single person has an individual experience.
Yeah.
But based on my own experience, I don't know how much. I think DARE created more fear around certain things instead of having like a really solid education about what I was experiencing.
Okay.
Does that kind of answer your question?
No, I think I see what you're getting at. Let me give you like an example of some concrete terms that we could talk about that would sort of like take that conversation in that way. Like say for example that a kid who grew up in the DARE program grew up and became addicted to like substance abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not fun drugs, the kind of drugs that you get on the street and then you end up like in really poor health,
Sure.
addicted, just like ruining your life. So that would be an example of a negative outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And from what you're saying, this could be attributed to the fact that DARE failed to prepare this kid to use drugs maybe in a responsible way instead of just demonizing and hiding the truth of what drugs are really like. Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I'm saying. I think that gets into some other weird territory too. I mean, this isn't a simple conversation by any means. I think that, you know, there's, as we've seen with the opioid crisis, there is a lot of responsible, quote unquote, usage of certain kinds of substances and whatnot that have led to extreme addiction. And so does DARE affect that one way or the other? I'm not sure, but I think having some kind of trust in an authority figure that allows for these kinds of things, like who's to say, so heroin is illegal, but OxyContin is not, right? So I think having a greater understanding of how addictive substances works on our psyche and on our physical body is important.
And you think that's missing from the DARE program or programs like it?
I think that the DARE program focuses primarily on these things are illegal. You should be afraid of them. They will destroy your life. And instead of like being able to connect the link between heroin usage and OxyContin, one is medically prescribed, the other is not. The other is a street drug. So how do we kind of tackle a lot of that too? I mean, now it's being shown that like MDMA is now a Schedule 2 drug instead of being a Schedule 1 drug, which is opening up to scientific research at this point. I'm sorry, I'm getting sidetracked here.
MDMA is what are the other terms for that?
Ecstasy, Molly.
Okay.
Those kinds of things, and they're actually being shown to have, according to MAPS, MAPS, which is an organization that has been pushing for decriminalization of a lot of like psychedelic substances specifically. They've been able to kind of like drop some of these substances down into Schedule 2 drugs, which is allowing them to be scientifically studied. And they're finding that it actually has some pretty significant effects on PTSD, depression, these kinds of psychological struggles, illnesses. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about harmful substances, that definitely should be addressed. But I think that it definitely goes into a number of different avenues, specifically in the medical community as well.
So you're saying that not only are programs like DARE sort of like scaring kids in a way that doesn't even successfully deter them from negative outcomes of drugs in the future, but also it's scaring them away from drugs that could have positive outcomes. In the example of MDMA use for therapy with PTSD,
Gotta be careful about the way we talk about this though too, because it's not like I'm suggesting that you just go out and fucking pop a couple pills and like everything's going to be solved, right?
But certainly what you're saying, just so I understand, a program like DARE certainly doesn't help our societal perspective about drugs as a whole.
Yes.
And, you know, getting it changed from class 1 to class 2, like you said, or Schedule 1, that takes political force, which takes societal pressure, and programs like DARE affect societal view of things. Just so I'm caught up, is that what you're saying about the negative outcomes?
Ultimately, I think it's shutting off the conversation due to legal circumstances, and therefore making things really complicated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything that could potentially move your needle a little bit my way, and not my way as in I have the opposite stance, but in my direction, physically? Yes. For example, a positive outcome that DARE could have, or a way in which it's better than nothing, perhaps?
A way that it's better than nothing? Absolutely. I think...
like, why is it not 100% already? Maybe that's another way to ask that question.
Because I think the conversation needs to be had, ultimately. I think that just like any other aspects of being human, I think that we are trying to understand and protect our people, right? And like, how do we protect somebody from something is you educate them. And so I think that the premise of like utilizing DARE as an educational tool, at its core, like I understand they're trying to do the best thing for young students and people and kids and whatnot. I'm just suggesting that there may be an alternative way of kind of having those conversations. So yeah, that's why I'm not throwing it at like 100%, because I think that like we as humanity need to have these conversations. I think that exposure, whether or not somebody doesn't know about marijuana and all of a sudden they're being told that marijuana is bad, does that make them want to do marijuana? Like that kind of comes into some interesting territories as well. But I think that exposure is important, personally, because you want to be aware of what is out there and how it can affect you.
All right. Thanks, Thetch. I feel like I understand your perspective on this.
Great. Well, thanks for talking with me.
Yeah, totally. This is Street Epistemology, and this specifically is a YouTube channel called Cordial Curiosity. We're out here on Sunday afternoons about this time pretty often. I also go to like Echo Park, other places. But if you'd like to have a follow-up conversation and this has been on your mind and you said, oh, I forgot to mention this and that, you can take a card, find us out here, and we'd love to chat again.
Cool. I appreciate you.
Yeah. A little hike, a little physical stimulation, then a little mental stimulation.
Yes.
Like a stress ball puzzle piece if you want.
Oh, fun. Street epistemology. Now, epistemology is just what the...
The methodology of asking questions?
Yes.
Is that it?
I think it's like the philosophy of knowledge and how you know what you know.
Sure.
So we like to ask people, how are you so sure about what you're so sure about?
Yeah. What do you guys, what's the conclusion that you guys normally come to? Is that like nobody actually knows anything?
People are very confident about their beliefs, yet have trouble articulating rock solid quality reasons that are testable.
Sure. How
I wanna play.
do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you